all right, everybody, we are here with Caleb Curry. If you guys are on YouTube, you probably have seen him already. He has so many YouTube videos. I went and scoured his channel. I would pull it up right now if I could. Actually, I might here in a second. I'm going to pull this up. He has so many YouTube videos of, I would say, just practically every freaking language you can get your hands on. Is that right, Caleb?
Pretty much, and a few more.
If we look at this, guys, this list goes on and on and on. Like this is all Node.js material, all C++ material, all React material, and the list literally goes on and on and on and on. So Caleb, even though you don't need an introduction, I'd like to let you, give yourself one and just tell everybody who you are and what you're about.
For sure. Well, first off, happy to be here and appreciate the invite. Yeah, I've been creating content online for a couple of years, 10 plus. I don't know exactly how long, but a long time. Been
11
in,
years on LinkedIn.
yeah, been interested in software since pretty much as long as I can remember. But it just started off with like video games and just being interested in computers. And then eventually I realized, hey, this is something you can make a career out of. And pretty much have been documenting my learnings and experience ever since I started. So that's
That's
pretty
awesome.
much the background, but I'm an open book if you have any questions.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. So one thing I did notice is you have a lot of information about you in the field. Like I said, we have a whole Forbes article on you. You know what I mean? You have all this credibility in the field. What I want to know is kind of like what life was like before you were in programming. Was this something you were always, always
hmm
plan on getting into? Did you have jobs before this? Like what about programming kind of spoke to you at the beginning initial
Yeah, I mean
phase?
that's a really good question because in general, I have a lot of interests and my interests change a lot, as you may have guessed, just from the wide variety of content I've created. Even within software, like I'll find new things I'm excited about and want to create content about. So when it came to choosing a career for myself, I had a few different things I may have been interested in, but I did get into software fairly early. So um, I would say it was like my first main career and the thing I've done ever since then. But prior to, I was considering nursing, and I actually started in a nursing program. I
Oh
thought
wow.
maybe something within the medical field would be interesting. But I think ultimately I landed on software when I was given an opportunity to start working on something, and I just found it like pretty captivating and exciting. So I just stuck with it ever since then.
That's awesome. And what a lot of people seem to love about your channel is that variety of stuff. Like you said, my interests change all the time. And I feel like that's what a lot of people like to get into because you know what I mean? They start coding and they're like, okay, I want to build an app. And then it's like, I want to build like a website now, or I want to build, a game. It'd be cool to build a game. And you seem to be a prime example of someone who can do all of those things. The question really is, how did you get to that level? Like whenever you're first starting out, everyone says like, hey, focus on one thing
hmm
and then branch out afterwards. For you, is that kind of what you did? How did you get started with learning to code? What was that whole
Yeah.
process like?
I'll kind of give a rundown of everything I went through when I was learning, but to kind of jump to the end, I do think that is wise advice to pick a niche and kind of focus on it for a while. Especially, if it's something where you have a few different interests, just pick one and learn it at a deeper level because you'll find that as you learn things in more depth, they can also become more interesting. Or the opposite, you'll find that, hey, I don't really love this. So I really encourage people to focus on a few narrow topics that they think they might enjoy and try to learn them in more depth. For me, I just started with just exploring because when I started coding, I wasn't really in the workforce or like looking for a career at that time as I was still in high school. So it was really just out of personal interest. There wasn't really much guidance. It was kind of just figuring things out as I went. So often fueled just by curiosity, which I think is extremely valuable, and having like the willingness to break things and try things and keep iterating on ideas, and just kind of taking a challenge and focusing on it for a longer period of time. So it's over multiple years where I started to, become comfortable with software and like becoming familiar with all the different technologies. If you have guidance or you're going through a boot camp or school, that process can be a lot faster for sure. For me, it was like I didn't really know which direction to go or which path I wanted to
It,
take.
it
Uh,
sounded like once you
kind
have
of
the fundamentals down, though, you could really kind of expand anywhere you wanted to go.
Yeah, for sure. Like the first language you learn is going to be probably the most challenging process, but then learning the next one, it might be 80% of the same core concepts. So it's definitely when people look at my channel, they're like, wow, like he knows a lot of things, but no, I kind of know like the same principles, just like,
Different syntax.
yeah,
Yeah, gotcha.
written in like 10 different languages.
I like that. I love that. I love
But
that.
when I started, I kind of started with uh, a few different things I experimented with, but one that I definitely remember is setting up like a game server, a Minecraft server specifically, and I really had no idea what that even meant at the time, but I wanted to figure it out, and it led me down like looking at some books on like hosting and websites. And that really led me into like the HTML, CSS, PHP realm. So I picked up a book on PHP because I wanted to kind of learn that stuff a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And this is like another quick advice. Always practice what you're reading because I think I read the entire PHP book without writing a single line of code.
Oh no.
And by the end of the book, I'm pretty sure I still knew absolutely nothing, but I did have a better idea of how things worked. So I don't think it was a complete waste of time. But yeah, PHP led me down the path of databases. Obviously, you're going to be working with databases, and I think that's where something clicked with me, and I started creating some content on database design and uh, web development. And then, yeah, it was all downhill from there.
So database design, that's more back end. Um,
Yeah, I
if
think.
it, no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say in general, if I had to like categorize all my content, I would say it's definitely more back end focused and language focused as opposed to front end.
What would you say to someone who's interested in back end development, um, and they want to learn it, but they also want to get a job as like a junior back end developer? Because
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, there's not a whole lot of junior developer back end jobs out there.
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question because I've had this question a lot, and I've thought through this answer a few times, and my opinion is that you should still find a focus. So when people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to do web development," I'm like, "Hey, do you like front end or back end?" And I tend to encourage them to focus on one of them as opposed to just full stack and learn everything. Just because there's a lot of full stack developers, the competition is pretty fierce, and like you're competing with people who may have had 10 years of experience learning all these different things. So if you want to kind of like stand out, you can focus in on like a few different technologies that all work together really well. So you might say, hey, I think I want to learn backend development, which is often the case if maybe you like the languages and you like the databases and you like to make things work behind the scenes. That'll often attract people
Love
to
that.
backend development. Whereas for like front end, and I'm kind of generalizing here, but front end often there's a little bit more focus on user experience and the visuals. So some people are naturally attracted to that as opposed to backend. So with backend, it really just comes down to picking a framework or a language. So which one you pick, like don't overthink it. You can research it online for days. Just pick one. Start learning how to build an API, how to connect that API to a database to store data, and just keep building from there. Like that sounds like
Guys,
just
that is
three
a gold
things.
mine right now. That is exactly where you should start if you want to get into backend development. That is right there where you should start. No further.
Yeah,
That's
you don't have
awesome.
to make it too complicated. Like everybody wants to complicate everything and learn, like how do I make this with
Oh
Docker
yeah,
and like all these
absolutely.
different like layers
It's
of
like, hey, just
abstraction.
start here, learn how to connect something with an API, and then go forward. I
Yeah. So
love that.
yeah, if you're just looking to get started with that, I have like an intro to REST API videos. It's like an hour long. Tons of people started there.
That's awesome.
And that would basically be like backend 101 if you had to call it something.
I love that. So something that stuck out to me whenever you said you started learning. I assume you were self taught.
Um, well, it's kind of interesting because, like, well, in general, not to be like nitpicky on words, I don't love that term because you often learn from someone. So,
Gotcha.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, like obviously, I know what you mean. Like, did I pick up books and like study
Yeah.
things on my own? And I would say the answer is yes, but I did end up going back to school and completing like a computer science bachelor's degree. But that was after I had already started in the industry. So yeah, like if people ask me like, are you self taught? Like I generally say yes. Like my
So
initial fuel for learning was all kind of self-driven, and got in the industry before going through like a traditional
I love that actually. My
program.
question is, you're in the industry. What made you say I need to go get a computer science degree?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Um,
it.
Largely, that was just like personal desire. Like it's something I
Cool.
wanted to do, and I thought, even though I could thrive or succeed without it, which I still believe, I felt like it could potentially open more doors that wouldn't have opened up otherwise. So that's just something that I was interested in, and I like wanted to know all of the fundamentals and understand like data structures and algorithms and operating systems. Like that was
Love
really
that.
exciting to me. But if you're just looking to like build
This
websites
guy
and get
went
a
to
job,
college for fun? Are you kidding me?
yeah, no, it's kind of nerdy, but yeah, I love like learning that stuff, and
That's awesome.
I think it was like a pretty good choice for me. In terms of career development, though, did it make a difference? Like, can't really say for sure, but
What would you
I
say
don't
about
heard
learning
anything.
experience? Like, a lot of people they try and do the self-taught route, and I
Hmm.
don't know if you have courses or anything and you see the retention rate on courses or if you've taken a handful of courses. They start a course, they get about like two modules in and then they're just done. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's pretty brutal. Like the fall off rate is just really bad. Like, and I think, I mean, maybe not, but I think my content is pretty good. Like, it's not just an issue with the content. It's just a matter of people not being committed to the goal and like the initial hurdle of learning something that's brand new is quite challenging, so people fall off. So when it comes to like picking that route of learning, like if you can find a mentor or someone to guide you, I think that is like super valuable. Whether that is just somebody who's willing to just chat with you once a month, or if it's like getting some tutors that can help you, or like having some kind of more formal one-on-one person to help you, that's going to accelerate your development 2x at least, probably more like 5x, because I swear I wasted probably 5 years over the course of the last 15 years just learning stuff that was not that important.
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So I guess with that all being said, we can kind of transition to we know about your life before the industry. We know about what your life was getting into the industry. Now I want to talk about all the things you've experienced in the industry. One of the things that stuck out in particular was you had a YouTube video that literally said, "I just got fired." And I watched the whole thing and I was like, okay, this guy has some experience with the tech layoffs. I was wondering if you could maybe share your story with that.
Yeah, sure. It's probably like 80% clickbait, but no, I'm
Doesn't matter.
playing. But yeah, I've had a few experiences like leaving companies. I think I'm not sure I remember that particular story. I think that was when I was laid off, which does happen in tech. Um, Fortunately, like I was given a fairly decent severance, a few months, so that was quite nice. Yeah, pretty much the experience that's part of the career, I believe. Like I consider that part of the career, not so much a failure on my part.
Yeah.
It's just like over the course of your career, you should perhaps consider that may happen and account for it, as opposed to waiting for it to happen and being like, whoa, wasn't expecting this to happen. And
Yeah,
then you're in like
absolutely.
total shock.
Absolutely.
So
I
any
think a
kind of
lot of
preparation and savings can be like really helpful for that.
For sure. I think a lot of people, and here's the funny thing is like, obviously, you make educational content, teaching people coding. We make educational content, teaching people coding. And what both you and I probably do find is that a lot of people will see something as simple as tech layoffs and be like, oh no, job market's screwed. Job market's screwed. I'm not going to learn to code. Don't learn to code. You know what I mean? You don't want to do it. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, well, I think there are in general ups and downs in the industry, and I think that makes sense. But also, don't read into every single thing you read on the internet and like jump to some conclusion about every tech company.
Stay
Like,
away from tech lead.
yeah, there's always job openings and there's always companies hiring for something. Maybe it's more difficult than it was 2020, but definitely not unachievable. And the more you like get anxiety and just like overthink all that stuff, the less likely you are to be successful. It's just like a distraction. You almost have to like build a path of where you want to go, and you stick to that path regardless of external circumstances. So that
Love that.
includes ignoring a lot of tech news, unfortunately, because we all like to stay up to date with what's going on, but it's the easiest way to kind of derail yourself and just get lost in what you're studying and
We
what you're
we've
focusing
kind
on.
of we've kind of developed a motto where it's like everyone who's learning how to code needs to stay the f off Reddit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like I used to be in some of like the computer science, I think it was like CS career questions or something, and then it just became like 75% of the posts were about like
oh
something
yeah,
negative.
dude.
And I was like, this isn't an accurate representation of reality. Maybe this is more of a reality than a few years ago, but it's definitely not true reality. So I ended up just leaving, and like I just don't read that stuff
I
anymore.
love that. I love that. Well, with that being said, let's go. Let's talk about AI for a second
Hmm.
because that is one of the
Yeah.
topics that I think everyone is stressed out. And
Yeah.
man, I feel like you can only make so many videos before like people you just give up on people when it's trying to understand this. I literally got into an argument online with someone. Let me see if I can pull up some of this conversation. I was telling one of our students about this, I think yesterday. And of course it was online. Got in an argument over a YouTube comment section.
Oh no.
And then everyone else just starts flaming the guy, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, take that. Let me find it real quick. But it was basically, I put together this whole 30-minute long video, and like I said, you make a lot of content. I'm sure you experience this too. You put together this super long video. You're excited, you send it out. Then 2 hours later, you get somebody that's like literally verbatim. He said, "Let's find it. Let's find it." He said, where is it? Oh my gosh. Dude, did he delete the thread? Oh, if he did, it was awesome. Anyway, it was basically AI's going, oh, here we go. Wait a second. I can't find it. Okay, anyway, he basically said AI is going to take over. What's the point? And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, people like you are the problem, man. People like you are the problem. You know what I mean? So, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts and opinions on AI?
Yeah, man, AI, it's gonna take over. We should all probably put in our notice at work.
No, 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 no,
No, I'm playing. I feel like, yeah, it's just kind of like just doomsday kind of prepping vibes. Like you can overthink it, you can over research it, and then like lose your motivation. But it's not an accurate representation of reality. I still believe that with AI. I do believe AI is disruptive and will continue to be so more, but it's just like the only constant in tech is that things change, right? So just learn the new things, and stay up to date. It's
No code solutions was like the first thing that people saw, and they were like, "Oh, AI is taking over." When Wix and Squarespace came out, everyone said, "We don't need programmers." You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, I mean, people build these AI tools, right? Like maybe it's less about like jobs going away and more like a shift of what the jobs are focusing on to perhaps like an elimination of more simple or jobs that could be automated and a shift to more higher level thinking jobs where perhaps you have to create something new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, to basically wrap up all of the AI stuff, I'm sure it's something we could go into a ton of detail on. Just don't worry about it, man. Like I've used ChatGPT and it can't get out like a single response without some kind of bug. Like it's awful, man. It's worse than me, and I'm like pretty mid when it comes to software development. So,
I love that. I love that. Well, I will say, like, I looked at a lot of your social. I follow you on Instagram and things like that. You're definitely a big family guy. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure.
You're a big family guy, and it seems like, programming, living the life as a tech influencer and things along those lines, you're able to really do a lot more. You know what I mean? Like, you're able to
Yeah,
spend more time with your family. You're able to just pretty much do what you want.
yeah. You can like, yeah. It's like there's a lot of belief like, oh, you have to put in 60 hours a week, or like, oh, programming, it's the career where you work 80 hours a week and get paid for 20. But I just don't really subscribe to that idea. Like, definitely there's periods of my life and time where I did, or like put more effort into career development. I would say in general, like just comparing me to like your average Joe, like I tend to be pretty like a high achiever. Like I'll, do like the YouTube channel out of my own will or like whatever. Like, not saying I'm like a workaholic by any means, but I do like to apply myself and build things. And even working jobs, like I still felt a need to kind of build my own portfolio and continue building the channel. And even with that, like I'm still able to design a life where I can have other priorities. Working a full-time software engineering role, doing the YouTube channel and trying to grow a business can be very challenging. And because of that, like there are times where like I wasn't posting on YouTube, like I haven't posted in a while now. Or there are times where I'm like, hey, I'm not going to do the full-time role and I'm just going to focus on content creation. It's less about, in my opinion, for like what's worked for me, it's less about like the day-to-day motivation and more about periods of my life where I have more drive and periods of my life where I have less drive. And instead of fighting that all the time, I've kind of leaned into that and think
I
like,
love
hey,
that.
if I'm not like feeling it, like I'm not going to force it all the time because that's how I tend to just lose excitement and joy for the things that like once used to excite me. So I think like the period of life that I'm currently in is definitely more chill. Like I don't really want to work 60 hours a week and like grinding, learning all the new
Well, do
stuff.
you have a newborn on the way, or are you already?
Yeah, well, I have a 1-year-old child, so
That's awesome.
definitely like pretty time consuming and energy consuming there. So that's kind of my perspective on like work life balance. It's more about like the long game, right? Like if I can stick with this for longer periods of time than other people, then like I'm going to get farther, right? And if I use like focused effort to learn versus just like sitting at a computer for 12 hours a day, right? Like it's about the quality of your
I
time.
think the headline of this episode needs to be like Caleb Curry, chillest programmer ever. Like it just
Yeah,
goes with the flow.
that's the vibe I'm going for lately. Just like so chill.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like I can't really think of any other field where you can do that. You know what I mean? Where you can just like it's really dependent on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if there's a day where you want to be like even motivated at work, you could probably put in that work, but also the workload in jobs, sometimes it's not like, depending on what job, maybe it's a paying
mhm.
job a little bit different, but it's not like the workload is a crazy amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like my experience with the software roles was often the case. Like just doing the software role, it's fabulous work life balance. If I tried to add additional like career progressing stuff like building the channel or like building side projects, I could do that for a period of time, but I started to like burn out a little bit or feel like I didn't really want to do all of that. So it's kind of like perhaps you don't have to overwork and maybe just do your job and just enjoy that and be content making like a decent six-figure salary, maybe.
I love that.
So for me, like I really wanted to shift to doing the content stuff full time, and that's like where I'm at currently,
I love that.
as of like the last couple months. So
That's awesome. I mean, it like, and that's like our thing with DevSlabs is always like, we teach you how to build cool shit. And for
yeah.
you, like you said, you can do side projects. You can build whatever you want. You know what I mean with code. And a lot of people like me, growing up playing with Legos, the idea of that is awesome. You know what I mean? And you seem to be a very like learn what calls to you type of person. What would you say are the good attributes of someone who wants to get into programming? Like you can look at someone and be like, oh, you do this, this, and this. You might be a good programmer.
Yeah, I think like a little bit of curiosity is good. So, like in one of my first jobs, I remember like having an assignment, and I wanted to know like why we were doing this, or like I wanted to know more details, and my boss was pretty much just like, stop thinking about it, just do it. And I'm like, I can't, I can't just do it. I need to know why are we doing this.
I love that.
So like having that curiosity is like a really strong motivator to like learn, and if there's something you don't understand, like going and doing some research to get a better understanding. So that's the first one probably.
I love that.
And then like basically like the ability to have more of a long-term view or like not be too emotional about ups and downs like day to day, which honestly is something I've struggled with a
It's
lot
like
where I have
investing.
days. Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, like there's days where I'm just like, oh, this is like the worst thing on planet Earth. And then there are other days where I'm like, dude, this is amazing, right? So, without being just emotionally numb, sometimes I like to just normalize those and try to have like not as bad days and not as good days, and just kind of think about the long term picture here. Like over the last 3 months, have I made progress? Am I going to make progress in the next 3 months? That is the picture you need to be successful, because as you're learning in the first few months, it's going to be pretty painful. There's going to be a lot of challenges, but as you start to like go through enough of those challenges, you learn how to conquer them better. You start to like remember issues you've had before, and you know how to solve them, and you just become like well versed, and you become like comfortable with the whole idea of being like a software developer. So,
For sure.
what other ones you got? You got any good ones?
Well, right now you said curiosity, long-term point of view, and then you said don't worry about the lows. Um, like, you're gonna have your highs, you're gonna have a lows, and I think those three right there are amazing points for anyone to take home. Like, if you have a
Yeah.
curious mind, if you can look at things big picture, because with programming, and I like you're on YouTube, what I mean, we see the YouTube videos all the time. Learn JavaScript in 3 months. You know what I mean? It's not something that you can really pick up on super quickly. And aside of that, at least it's not something like you have to go to college to get a 4-year degree to do. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it doesn't take that long, or it takes a long time, but it doesn't take long compared to a lot of other fields out there. So I love that, long-term point of view, curiosity, and being able to handle the lows. And honestly, like, guys, that's just life. You know what I mean? Like, that's any job, whether you're a manager at a warehouse, or a welder, or a car mechanic, or a software engineer. That's any part.
Yeah, I think for software, it's definitely a career where you have the ability to succeed without going through like a long school program. Especially if you think of like if you were a full stack developer or like a backend developer or whatever it might be, and you did that professionally for 4 years. Think of how much experience you'd have, and compare that to the average person who comes out of a 4 or sometimes 5 year computer science program, and they know
Absolutely.
like they don't even know what a GitHub is. Like, come on.
You'd be shocked the amount of people that come learn at Dev Slopes that have computer science degrees, literally, because it's like, and I'm sure, like, you went through a computer science course. Would you say that is the reason you have good coding skills?
I don't believe so. I mean, it was definitely something I enjoyed, but I would have probably been fine without it. If you need that really structured program, like, having classes, like maybe that's the route for some people. But just there's a lot of opportunity cost of like what you could learn and
Absolutely.
do for those 4 years. And also another thing, like going back to like the attributes, there's definitely changes I've noticed in myself, like over my career, that have made things better for me or like worse or just different. So like seeing some changes in like personal character traits
Yeah.
affecting your career is interesting. So like starting off, I would probably say I was like a lot more of a people pleaser, which made work challenging. Like it made it fairly easy to kind of get into roles and kind of like navigate in and like make everybody kind of like you. But that's kind of like a debt, right? Now you have no like assertiveness to say no to tasks, and you're kind of
Mm,
just doing like whatever's given to you, and you have no like structure. And I think that is like something you pay for eventually. So like that's something I've definitely noticed a change in myself, where like when I started and I came into my career, I would describe myself as like someone who was pretty high energy, but also like had a lot of attributes of like loyalty and wanting to make everyone happy and like be like a good employee. And
yeah,
while
absolutely.
all those are good, like I'd still want to be a good employee. Over time I've kind of shifted it more towards like the feeling of like a job being a business exchange. Like I'm providing this code and like my service of like building your software for a set pay, and not being so worried about like company loyalty, and all these like having like my coworkers be happy with my work. Like as long as my manager's happy and I'm producing what I'm supposed to be producing, that's like my major priority, and that is good enough for me. So
I love
without it,
that.
yeah, without it sounding like too abrasive,
No,
like
I mean it's kind of like it fits in line with Caleb Curry, Chillest programmer. Like, yeah, make
yeah,
sure this gets done. Make sure my stuff gets done on time. And in reality, like that's the only thing I can think of that, like, if you think about when AI comes in, like all you have to be able to do realistically is be a problem solver.
yeah, for
And as
sure.
long as you can be a problem solver, like how you're saying, you go in, I do my day to day, I do what needs to be done. I'm sure put in the extra leg if it needs to be put in, things along those lines. But that's what you need in order to pretty much survive this AI takeover. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Just the ability to solve problems, ability
Yeah,
to solve problems.
yeah. I think the biggest solution to the AI movement or whatever you want to call it is just to upskill and become comfortable with those things, which probably takes less time than a lot of people
Yeah,
assume.
yeah,
Like just spend a day to learn like all the major AI tools, and
yeah.
that'll like
Yeah.
open your eyes to like what's out there. And then, just when it comes to finding roles, find something you're pretty good at and you can keep up with, and don't feel like you have to do everybody's work or put in 60 hours a week every week. Like
I
have
love
some
that.
balance, and like that'll help keep it manageable and enjoyable so you can do it for the long haul.
I love that. Well, Kalo, I think we're just coming to a closing here, and I think with everybody I talk to, I want to always end it with like, we're DevSops Academy. We teach people how to code, obviously. So, Caleb, what would you say to anyone out there who might be interested in learning how to code? They're a little nervous. They don't really want to take the jump yet. Maybe they've dabbled with some of your videos or dabbled with a few courses, but they just can't take the jump. What would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to making that decision. So, I mean, neither. I mean, I can't force you. You can't force them. But it has to come from within to like at least make that commitment to
Yeah,
start learning, and don't
absolutely.
do it on your own. It's just not going to work as you would like. So find a program or course or a person you can follow that's going to bring you through from beginning to end.
I love that. Well, Caleb, thanks so much. I really appreciate you for coming on, man. And everyone
For
at
sure.
DevSlip Academy, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Caleb, please give him, some subscribers on YouTube right now. He's at, I think, around like 500, 600K right now. And he has a lot of awesome, awesome tutorials. Like we said earlier, pretty much every single language you can think of. So, guys, I really appreciate you guys for watching this. Caleb, thank you so much for being on. And I'll
Yeah,
see
it's
you
a
guys
pleasure.
soon.
Peace out.